Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the Fluff and Hammer Adjacent. Welcome back to the Ages of Chaos. There's probably going to be a few of these things coming down the line, given what we know is on the way. Games Workshop have promised that 2022 would be a very big year for Chaos in Warhammer 40,000 9th edition, and that does seem to be the case. I was recently very happy to receive my Chaos Knights boxed army set that has got all sorts of lovely things inside of it, including the new Chaos Knight, the Knight Abominant, who is... Whoa, he is beautiful. Not only in terms of the massive bloody model and his, but also his background and his rules. He's a psychic, demonically possessed knight. Very cool indeed. We've seen lots of what's coming down the line. I mean, the new Chaos Space Marine Codex is imminent, and that's looking pretty hot stuff at the moment. From what we've seen, from the little rumors floating around, there's not so much a drip feed as like more or less the entire Codex has been leaked. If we are to believe the rumor mongers out there, pretty much the entire Codex has been leaked at this point, barring one or two little details, and it's looking really good. It looks like for the first time in a long time they've actually taken pains to really excruciatingly differentiate Chaos Space Marines from Imperial Marines. They've tried to make them something different, which is... Yay! It's about time. They need to be more than just Marines with spikes. Yay! And horns and trim, you know? And it looks like that's what they've done. They have, not only do they get their extra wound and all of that gubbins, they get an extra attack over their Imperial counterparts, which makes sense because they are much more interested, for the most part, in bludgeoning the enemy over their heads with their bolters than actually shooting them. They have much more differentiated weaponry. It looks like demon blades are going to be quite a focus for this codex by all accounts. Terminator weapons, they've actually made some effort to kind of unify Terminator weapons to a certain degree. If the rumors are to be believed, it looks like a lot of the more sort of the different Terminator weapons are going to be collapsed into being demonic weapons, generic demonic weapons, which makes sense. It makes sense from a play perspective because it means that you're going to be able to play Chaos Terminators much more easily, but also if the profiles for demon weapons are anything to go by, they're just better than the power weapons that came before. So, great. All good, right? On top of that, there's all the Legion stuff, which looks great. All the Legions are getting, well, most of them anyway. The likes of the World Eaters are not in it because they are going to get their Codex very soon, well, not very soon, but somewhere down the line. That's great. Cannot wait to see that. But in the interim, in the Chaos Knights Army box set is the limited edition of the Chaos Knights Codex for 9th edition. Now, one of the problems the Chaos Knights have had traditionally is that they were not sufficiently different from their Imperial counterparts to make them interesting. They had cool background. I mean, the Chaos Knights have been there technically since the beginning in terms of the background. There's always been mention of the knightly households that were corrupted by Chaos during the Horus Heresy. Even way back in like Rogue Trader there were mentions of them, but they were never really represented on the tabletop. The closest we got was Epic, where there were Chaos Knights, and most of them were Slaneshi. There were the Chaos Knight households that had been corrupted by Slanesh, and that you got Titan demon engines like the Subjugator, the Hellstrider, and the Hellseeker, all of which were either Titans or Knights that had been corrupted by Slanesh. This book, the new one, really goes out of its way to differentiate the Chaos Knights from their Imperial counterparts, not only in terms of their background, but also in terms of how they play. The big takeaway from this one, the big difference, is that they've introduced a series of universal special rules that basically means that the Chaos Knights, whereas the Imperial Knights have rules that buff and support their own forces, the Chaos Knights have rules that debuff their enemies. It's a very cool differentiation, and it means that the Chaos Knights are obviously going to be much more aggressive than their Imperial counterparts. It makes a lot of sense. There is a wonderful universal table in this book, the Dread Table, and basically what it does is you have a list of 3 special rules, basically. Despair, Doom, and Darkness. You have a column for Despair, a column for Doom, and a column for Darkness. You start in the first battle round with Doom, which introduces certain universal special rules that apply across the table. And then you can pick in Battle Round 2 whether you go to Despair or whether you go to Darkness, and you can introduce different types of rules that apply throughout the battle. Then in Battle Round 3, you can switch back to Doom, or you can stay on Despair or Darkness and introduce rules from those tables. And they escalate as the battle goes on, and it's all about debuffing the enemy. It's all about affecting morale and all of that, and making things much more problematic for them to shoot or to charge or that kind of thing. It's very, very, very cool and very characterful. It's like the Chaos Knights affect the environment around them. They're like walking totems or foci of warp energy and chaos power, and wherever they tread, wherever they emerge, the power of chaos suffuses everything and affects the landscape around them. It's very, very, very cool, very characterful, and is a really fun system as well. It means that they are more than, suffering from the Chaos Space Marine thing of just being Imperial Knights with spikes and tentacles. They are a lot more than that now. Not only do we have that, but we also have a lot more in the way of customization. So not only do you get what you had in the 8th Ed Codex, where you can make your Chaos Knights either idolaters or infernal households, the difference being the idolaters are the households that don't necessarily worship chaos as such, but have fallen owing to their own ideological or political circumstances. They're much more independent. They're more like the undivided legions in the Chaos Space Marines, right? They've got their own particular ideologies, politics, and agendas. Whereas the infernal households, they are the ones that have been completely consumed by chaos. They've been corrupted by the Dark Mechanicum, and they're suffused with demons, and they are marked by the chaos powers. So basically you can dedicate your Chaos Knights to either being idolaters or to being infernal households, and they get certain special rules based on that. You can also take independent Chaos Knights as just their own Lord of War choices, which can then join various Heretic Astartes armies. They can join Thousand Sons, they can join Plague Marines, and they can join Chaos Space Marines without affecting their universal special rules. So you can take a Tzeentch dedicated Chaos Knight as a Lord of War choice, and it will not affect the Thousand Sons ability to use their Kabbalistic foci, for example. It's a really clever thing, and it just layers it. It makes Chaos armies much vaster and much more interesting. I mean, just as additions and allies for my Thousand Sons, these things are going to be spectacular. They add in a degree of heavy support and heavy firepower that those armies may be lacking. Like the Knight Abominant with its psychic powers, fantastic addition to a Thousand Sons army. Not only that, but it has a Volkite Combustor, which is a weapon like from the days of the Horus Heresy, which is ancient and is incredibly powerful. So that's going to be a wonderful addition to a Thousand Sons army. There is so much you can do, even on their own, just as an army on their own. They're actually much more functional than they used to be. One of the problems with them is that they were one of those codexes that was really designed as an ally system for other codices, rather than being an army in and of themselves. But they've taken great pains to make sure that they function, to make sure that they work. You can do things now like you can mark your certain examples of your knights and give them favors of the gods, which are like demonic gifts based on their dedication. And in order to activate their dedications, they need to kill they have to fulfill a tally. Basically, they need to kill a certain number of enemy models before the favoured ability of each blessing activates. They have like a minor ability, which is always active, and then they have a favored ability, which only activates when they've killed a certain tally of enemies, which is fucking brilliant. I love it to bits. It just introduces so much in the way of customization and intrigue and ways of making the Chaos Knights different from Imperial Knights, which is always the big thing. That's always what we're looking for. All of the houses, like the famous houses from the previous Codex are here, as well as a new one, House Corvax, which is really interesting because it's a house of knights taken and corrupted by Baelacor. They are his personal household of knights, and they are some of his highest servants, apparently. It's really, really, really cool. I love it to bits. And you can also create your own Dread households as well. There's a system whereby you can just create your own. You can create sort of like splinters of the established households. It's a really cool piece of work. And not only that, the whole book just drips with atmosphere and background. It is really, really, really fun. There's a lot of detail in here about how knights fall, how knightly households fall, how the mechanisms of knights are often the reasons why they lose their minds or why they go mad, how the throne mechanicum, which is the interface by which the pilots bond to the knights themselves, to the machines themselves, can drive them mad, because the throne's mechanicum are often haunted by the engrams of their ancestors or of the knights that previously piloted the machine. So they can affect the minds of the pilots and drive them mad. Some of the night, I mean, there's a lovely level of irony in here as well, of like dystopian irony, because a lot of the iconoclast households, they fell not because of any fault of their own, but because the Imperium drove them to it. The Imperium either turned on them or abandoned them or declared them heretic for no particular reason. There's a very particular dread knight called Incarnate Slaughter. And Incarnate Slaughter is a very interesting piece indeed. It was originally, when it was loyalist, it was assigned to, it and its household were assigned to a system overrun by the Tyranids, and they were outnumbered literally by 1,000 to 1. So they spent literally years slaughtering their ways through these Tyranids, and by the end, the engine that would become Incarnate Slaughter was the last one of its household, and pulsing through its throne mechanicum was just one imperative, which was kill, 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 kill. It had lost itself, and the pilot had burnt out their mind in the imperative to slaughter, and as a result of that, it became suffused with warp energy, and is now like it's like a demon. It emerges from pools of blood on worlds where slaughter is at its height, and it goes nuts. It rampages and destroys everything. The background for these things is wonderful. It is really interesting. They layer in some beautiful new notes for chaos and for how human beings and how institutions within the Imperium fall to chaos or become inveigled by chaos. I just love that stuff. I've got to say, that is my jam. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, of reference in this book to how the Dark Mechanicum actively work to subvert knightly households, how they physically take knights that they've defeated and corrupt both the pilots and the throne mechanicum through profane rituals, through torture, through introducing demonic scrap code and corruption into the machine itself. It's really cool. They are a very interesting example and new note within the forces of chaos. They've got this sort of like corrupted nobility about them. Certainly the iconoclast households, they feel as though they've very much been hard done by, that they've been betrayed or that they've been lied to by the Imperium, and that their only option is to fight against it. They believe that they are the true knights, you know, and that those who are loyal to the Imperium are the ones who are blind and who are corrupt. It's very, very, very cool. I love that stuff. It's well worth picking up just for the background, to be honest. It's a great read. It's a really fun, interesting read. And having had a look through the army list, I mean, I've got the set now, which has got a Knight Abominant and 2 War Dogs in it, so they've got to be made. They've got to be made. I'm going to make, I believe, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a knightly household that's associated with my Thousand Sons. It's going to be part. They're going to be part of the Shattered Suns, House Liminatis, I'm going to call them, and they're going to be similarly spectral. So my Thousand Sons have this thing where they are, the Rubricae are kind of spectres, they're ghosts, and these guys are going to be very much the same. And thanks to the rules that are in this book, I can represent that. I can actually represent that really very well. The potential for sort of role playing and storytelling within the army list and within the battle you fight is really high here. It's a very exciting piece of work, and if this and of course the Thousand Sons and the Death Guard, both of which are codices I love, are indications of where Chaos is going in Ninth Ed, then it's enormously exciting. I've got to say, it is enormously exciting. I mean, I know there's a lot of cynicism out there, as there always is, with regards to Warhammer Circles, but you know what? For me, thus far, Ninth Ed is my favourite version of the game. I've got to say, it is my favourite version of the game. I'm loving what's being done with Chaos. It seems that they are listening to the feedback. They are doing things with Chaos that should have been done many, 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 many moons ago, and I am all here for it.